excited that you're here, and I'm really looking forward to sharing my insights on imposter syndrome. And the reason that I I believe, I feel, I know that it's something that is now out of date and it's a lie. So I just want to set out the context for this, why I believe this is the case, and also what it's costing you as well, both in financial, emotional, and mental. Um, and so this is a big one because it's something that I've always believed that, oh, I was told that I had, and I attached this label to it, imposter syndrome. How many times have you been told that you have imposter syndrome? And so for the next 30 minutes, I will show you, and I'm going to show you exactly why that label is keeping you stuck and why it's adding to you recycling that income ceiling. So I'm going to break it down and break down the myths in 30 minutes. Are we ready? Let's do this. So let's drop drop a note in the chat if you have a question or if you want me to go deeper into one of the topics that I will just unleash and let go on the imposter syndrome paradigm and why it's time to change it. Let's go. So you've just had a win. You've signed a contract. It's been a big deal for you. You've worked really hard on it. And the client says yes, or the business partner says yes. And it means significant sum. It could be 15K, 25K, 150K. And then you feel flat, thinking, I don't deserve this. And so there's a degree of overcompensation. Maybe I should throw this in. Maybe I should add this. Maybe I should give these tons of bonuses just to make sure that they feel that they're getting value for what I'm charging. And all those bonuses, all those extras were not asked for. That person, that company, that client signed you because you were the best person for the role. You're the best person to do the job and deliver. That's it. That's what they signed. But something inside you saying, I'm not good enough, or what if she doesn't get what she's paid me for, or what if she thinks I'm taking advantage of her? And so that voice keeps recycling and it eats away at your profit margin because without knowing, unbeknown to you subconsciously, what you're doing or what's really going on is this. Your profit margin, or the thing that's supposed to be the fund for your life, your family, your kids going to private school, having the holidays, having the freedom that you desire or that you're working towards, is just evaporated because you're living under a contract that is silencing you. And by attaching the imposter syndrome label, you've just brought that contract to life even more. And what that does, it sucks and drains your life force energy. So it then goes on repeat. So if that's you, I see you, I feel you, and I want you to understand that you don't have imposter syndrome. This is contracts, past lives contracts, sabotaging patterns that you've been carrying and attaching, let's just say, attaching the label of imposter syndrome is amping up. And I'll draw a diagram in a minute, but what it's actually doing is suppressing your energy, suppressing your life force energy and keeping you at that set point. So every time you expand and you tell yourself, it's not me, I'm not good enough, I have imposter syndrome, that energetic state is shrinking even more and pulls you back to that reset point. So let me show you what that is actually costing you in real time. You are undercharging and over delivering. So you might say, I feel greedy for charging. I'm not worth that. So I'm not going to reach out to that person, or I'm not going to value the actual value that I'm going to be giving. So you could be charging 4K for something or 10K for something when actually it should be from 4 to 8 or from 10 to 15. So if your service is worth 10K, but you're actually charging 6K, that's 40K gone right there. Just vanished. 45K vanished, 40K vanished just straight away. And those missed opportunities are actually what's keeping you in that cycle and preventing you from moving into providing more value for other people. So if you're turning down clients or turning down opportunities because you think, okay, maybe that's not for me, I'm going to miss that because I'll get judged and I'm not qualified enough, whatever it is, or someone out there is better than me, that's 70K, 75K being left on the table. And that's also, I'm just going to say it, that's also quite selfish, because that leak is guilt driven, because that it's not even a silent voice, it's a loud voice that's been allowed to let loose to say, I have imposter syndrome. I need more confidence. I need more clarity. I need more of this. I need more of that. So you journal, you affirm, you do the coaching and the inner work, but all the time not actually getting to the root of the problem and the energetic root of the problem. So if it's something that you're feeling guilty about and you feel that you've been diagnosed as imposter syndrome, I just want to pause here for a minute and just and put this on the table for two things. One, this was a phrase that was coined in 1978, and we're approaching 50 years. So why are we operating in the past? Why are we still using labels that attach over almost 50 years ago, and times have moved on and times have changed? And the other thing I want to really bring out on here is, who are you deceiving? Because imposter means that you're defrauding. An imposter means that you're being something that you're not and you're defrauding. So who are you defrauding? Who are you defrauding by being your genuine, authentic self? So those are the two questions that convenient label that gets attached so much to high achieving women who may have, let's just face it, none of us are perfect. We all have flaws and we all have vulnerabilities. But for high performing women in particular, or high achievers, focusing on that internal psychological flaw is zapping your energy. And what's missing is not that internal it's not, I need to do more of. It's actually looking at your external positioning and how are you showing up as that category of one. And here's where it gets controversial, because the label of imposter syndrome and attaching that label sells books, it sells programs, it sells everything. So let me break this down, and I will say this so clear than ever before. You are not an imposter. You're too smart, too capable, too talented, too multifaceted, and have the most powerful state of being available to you. It's just that you haven't yet worked with or learned how to work and shape that field and come to the point that you're able to operate at the state and communicate that internal value in a way that is unapologetic, but also unfuckwithable. That's it. Because you're not a fraud. We're not frauds. We're here doing the best job that we can. It's just that that strategic bridge between your positioning and the authority it deserves with precision hasn't quite yet mapped or gelled into the who you really are at source. And I will draw this diagram to show you. It might come up differently on the live, but this is what I'm trying to explain to you. I have a piece of paper here. I'm not the world's best drawer, so let's go with it. And I don't know if you can see that. I'll put that up there. So this is you, and this is the field around you. And when you every time you say to yourself, I am an imposter, I have imposter syndrome, what's actually happening? Instead of this going out here and expanding and attracting what you really want, what you're doing is you're pushing the field back in. So this contracts and then it pushes your income back to the reset point. That's it. That is as simple as it is. So when you stop trying to be liked, stop trying to please or overly please, stop trying to be understood, stop trying to operate from the logical and then trying to solve everything. That's when you start to emanate that field and expand that field. That's when things start to shift, because what you're doing is then sustaining that field. And the buzzword at the moment is nervous system, nervous system. Your nervous system doesn't have the capacity to hold what you're asking for or to hold the income. That's part of it. That's one part of it. It's not the sole singular solution. And I really want to stress this, because your nervous system is absolutely wired for survival strategies. Absolutely. But what it's also doing is keeping you safe. So the primal part of our body, our mind, keeps us safe because we think we're under attack, but that's no longer relevant. At some point we were told that being visible, having more money, would actually fuck our nervous system up. But that again is not true. It's true to an extent, but not the whole story. It's part of it. Your nervous system remembers, but you can also expand it and safely and do that in a way that doesn't cost you your soul. And then the other layer that comes in is your body. Because they say, as you know, your body keeps a score. And those beliefs are coded into your cellular structure, into your DNA, into your skin. It gets handed down from generation to generation. And it also gets picked up from things that you perceive, either through protection for safety or otherwise. And so your body is logging these that, okay, next time that event happened, it's not safe. Or next time that happened, I want more of that. And so your body then resists receiving more because it's actually recorded or is coded into those patterns that you've seen and marked that says it's not safe. And then when you add the inherited patterns onto that, the lineage wounds that's been passed down, whether it's through vows of poverty or vows of silence, what we have about money or power or relationships, that also adds to the dynamics of what's going on. And so maybe in your family, your mother didn't go out to work or the grandparents didn't go out to work. It doesn't mean that will follow through to you. But one of the things that it does mean is that the patterns that your mother inherited will pass down to you as well, subconsciously and also in your genetics. And so it might be that one of the things, good women don't charge. I've heard that one so many times. If you're a good woman, you give things away. But things have moved on. The world has moved on, right? The thing is, these aren't just beliefs. These are contracts that's been written in. And then the fourth pillar, the fourth layer on top of that are those past lives, what I call soul contracts. Those things that have contributed to, I've been here before and I got banned. And for some women in particular, that might be the witch wound. You've heard me talk about the witch wound before, or it could be that I'm going to be silent because if I speak up, if I ask for what I'm worth, then I'll be silenced. And so those 4 layers are interplaying between themselves. And unless we actually address those at the root, the patterns will continue and the patterns will repeat. Because those contracts and the cellular structure and the DNA, all those things are still live and going on. So what it's manifesting as is, I have imposter syndrome. And then what that is doing in return is perpetually repeating the patterns. So you'll have a breakthrough. And this is why, you'll have the somatic treatment, you have some somatic breath work, or you might have coaching and, or therapy, and then you'll have the breakthrough and it will work for a while, but then it plateaus. And then there's another spike and then it falls back and then it repeats. And then that's when that label of I've got imposter syndrome gets attached even more, which is just so not true. And it's such a fucking lie that women keep telling themselves. That perpetuates the problem. And then to add insult, to make it even worse, the addressment becomes, let's do more of the same to address the trauma and heal the trauma instead of forward healing, instead of looking at where do you want to be? Where do you want to get to? It becomes, let's heal the cycle that you're in right now. So what's going to happen? You're going to get more of the same, just more going round and round and round, and nothing ever gets addressed permanently. So let me show you what happens when you clear the layers. I had a client, I call her Sandy, not her real name, very talented, six-figure business. On the outside, she looked very successful, multiple businesses, very prolific, very visible. On the inside, she was telling herself that she had imposter syndrome, and she had been to a number of coaches who had diagnosed imposter syndrome and were treating the imposter syndrome. Told her to be more authentic, show up, be more herself, ask for what she wants. And she did, but each time she felt worse about herself. And each time her income spiked and then fell back, fell back. And so when she came to me, she was at this point of, I feel broken, my business isn't working, it looks good on paper, I'm taking work that I don't want to take, and I'm actually thinking about quitting. I didn't fix her confidence and I didn't fix her self-doubt. I didn't give her more clarity. I didn't do any of that because that's not my job. We did a number of things. We went back to the root, the 4 layers, to look at what was causing her to trip. What were the pressure points in her frequency that was causing that trip up and the misalignment between where she is now and what she really wanted? We didn't go back to let's go and heal the past and let's go and dig it up and let's go understand what mummy or daddy did or granddad did. We didn't do that. We simply looked at what were the things that were showing up and ready to be removed, dismantled for her to achieve her next level. And then we looked at, through the Akashic records, what she's here to do. And so that then expanded her horizon to see what she was truly capable of. Because in your records reside the reason you came and what you came to achieve on this earth in this lifetime. And in the job, it's up to you whether you want to live that, be it, embody that. And imposter syndrome is not going to help you to do that. It's not going to get you there. So as I said, we didn't work on confidence. We didn't work on more clarity. We didn't work on burning her business down to rebuild it. We looked at the mismatch between what was going on, where she is, and actually what she was here to do. And the big distinction is that she was playing smaller than she actually is. I say the present tense because when you clear those layers and you know that you are capable of so much more, and you remove all the barriers that keeps you bracing, to then, I'm going to use this little slide again, so probably can see, to then expand, but go the other way, that energetic field that surrounds the body, you start holding more. You start building more. Your creativity shifts. Your innovation shifts. So when we clear those patterns and then take action to address what new actions need to come in, she cancelled, terminated one of her most profitable line of business because it was draining her. She reset and restructured her processes, her business systems, the systems that she was using, and the way she was selling her offers as well. So we built that based on her set point, but also where she needed to go. So it wasn't like, let's just stay in your comfort zone and let's do this for now. It was, what's the stretch? And then what actions are aligned for her to then move into that stretch. That's a methodology that needs to happen, not I've coached you And this is, well, not the, I've coached you and tell me what's working, tell me what's not working. What do you need right now? Because that is toning down someone's expertise. That is toning down someone into the state that they, and it's like, oh, I feel so much better now. But no, then when someone comes to you, they're not meant to feel better. They're meant to be seeing the true essence of how powerful they are. So it isn't about let's reorient or tone down. It's about adjusting so that person can see their highest frequency vision that's available to them and then navigate the path to achieve it. And so, as a consequence of that, what happened with Sandy, within short space of time, she was pitching for opportunities and receiving opportunities that she'd actually said I wouldn't be available for previously. These are things I wouldn't have put myself out there for. And she was receiving recognition for the work that she was doing, winning awards, etc. She was much more decisive. And that was a ripple effect through her relationship and also through her family as well. Because one of the things that we did focus on, we did address that was perpetuating this thing of I think I have imposter syndrome is actually there was a poverty vow that was running. And so she finally understood her positioning and the gifts that she has. And the business became much more effortless because she was positioning herself as the strategic asset, not a burden or not having to stay quiet in meetings because she was fearful of losing a contract or fearful of saying the wrong thing. So I've seen and I've worked with plenty of women, and I've spoken to enough women to know that attaching and assigning labels is something you have two choices. One, you can continue accepting that and telling yourself, I've got imposter syndrome, and mark that into your identity and code it into your identity and keep looping the same patterns and keep looping the same 6 figure income, undercharging, over delivering, wondering why money never stays, wondering when am I going to have more money coming in, or stop diagnosing or listening to others diagnostics of you saying that you have this label of imposter syndrome or whatever label it is that you have, and move past that confidence and clarity conversation into working in the future, into collapse in time, physically, literally collapse in time from the future. Because your genius is worth it, and there are people out there waiting to hear from you, and your authority deserves that. So I'm just going to pause there for a minute because I think there's a lot to take in. Because this is something that I feel so fucking passionate about, because for a long time, I was told I had imposter syndrome. And it wasn't I had imposter syndrome, because I was like, I'm not pretending to be something I'm not. I'm not pretending to be someone who I'm not. I some it I didn't sometimes you don't know that you don't know what you don't know. Or there are times when you're consciously or subconsciously incompetent because you haven't got the skills or the learning yet. Doesn't make you an imposter. Does not make one an imposter. So here's what changes when you discard that label And you work from that inner knowing, that inner belief. You stop softening yourself. You stop over delivering, undercharging, going around telling yourself that you're not good enough, not seeing your value. And you stop hiding. You stop playing small and hiding your visibility. And then you position yourself as the only logical choice. And that's what Sandy did. We worked on her patterns. We worked on her positioning herself as the only choice. Not through pep talk or preparation, but we did that with the truth of her soul. We recalibrated from the inside out the truth of her soul. And then we assessed her frequency and the energetic expansion to make sure that they were matching and she was taking the actions. And these aren't massive actions like I'm going to leave my husband or I'm going to quit my job or I'm going to burn my business down. These are simply actions of acts of rebellion. And it could be I'm going to go to a coffee shop and have the croissant that I didn't want to give myself because it was too fattening. Or it could be I'm going to go to the shop and buy towels because I've been wanting to buy towels for myself for such a long time. It's the small things that really matters. That's when you're embodying your sovereign self inside and operating and shifting your frequency. So as a side note, when people say to you, raise your vibration, that's also a fucking lie. You cannot raise your vibration. You shift it. And the only way to shift it is by taking new action. You cannot sit in a meditation and your vibration raises. Of course, you feel good, you feel better, you feel calmer, and you take action. But if you're not pushing yourself outside your comfort zone and expanding your nervous system, expanding the source of your truth, then your frequency doesn't shift. And it's when your frequency shifts, you collapse in time. So some people refer to it as bending time or bending reality. It's simply bringing the future timeline into now. And so when you're healing from the future self, not from the past self, and not from your trauma self, you're really healing from the future self and you're working with the future self, bringing that into the now. That's when things start to shift. So I just want to leave you with this. You're not broken. Don't need fixing. There's nothing wrong with you. The mismatch is those labels that you've assigned. You're going to use my little thing again. The mismatch that is the labels that you've assigned yourself about imposter syndrome is actually causing this to contract. So every time you try to move out, it comes back in. And so the clients that you're trying to attract, the value that you're trying to share to yourself is collapsing inwards instead of pushing out. And it's only by when you start to heal forwards into your North Star, then the work that you've been doing for years will start to bear fruit and see that time collapse. And it's through those 4 layers, not 1, not 2, those 4 layers that you start to collapse those time. And that's how I work with my clients. And I think that's how it's important because that's what I personally took myself through to move from feeling stuck and recycling the same patterns over and over and over. And I realized that what the methods out there, what they're teaching is let's just heal and do more of the same. Let's follow the old patterns. Let's follow the Neville Goddards. Let's follow, all these different things rather than moving into the future and accessing the future timeline to ask, what does Sandy need right now? What changes does Sandy need to make? Or whoever, what changes do you need to make? And then work on expanding and shifting your tolerance level. And some might say that's woo, that's okay, because science is now catching up, because there are some things that we cannot explain, and there's some things that science cannot explain, and science is catching up with that. So I want to leave you with this. There are 4 things to do. 1, remove the labels and see yourself as a sovereign being, as the one that came here to make a change and have an impact. 2, see the struggles and the challenges, the difficulties, etc., as self-advancement. And 3, work on the 4, I was going to say quattro, 4 pillars that expands and recalibrates at a higher level. And the 5th thing is dream into the future. Did I say 5? Sorry, that meant 4. Dream into the future. It's not fix what is broken. Step into what's ready there for you to claim. And I call that forward healing, not backwards healing. Because 5% is strategy, 95% is internal work. And that's what we do in the room. Everything is tailored to you. Everything is bespoke to you. And at the moment, I'm currently releasing over a period of 8 weeks, a clearing pattern that addresses different wounds that women in particular carry for various reasons. The hard work wound, for example, that's coming next, or the guilt wound. This week, I've released a visibility wound and clearing it, because as sovereign leaders, the world is shifting, the time is shifting, and more women are required to really absolutely step into their divinity and lead. And it's only by releasing those patterns and dissolving them at the root, at the core, we can truly step into the fullness of who we are. So I'll invite you to just experience one. And I'm offering the first 5 for £1. I think it's either £1 or $1. Sometimes I work in US, sometimes I work in sterling. So it's either £1 or $1. The first 5 is for that. And then the price goes up to $30 afterwards. But also, if you have any questions, if there's anything that you want to talk about, please feel free to DM me, message me. I'll continue doing these weeklies. And if there's a specific topic that you'd love me to talk about, please also let me know, because the time is now for women to rise. This shift is, everyone talks about the chaos, everyone talks about the fear, but this is such a beautiful time to be living and leading. And so your voice is of service, your word is of service, you are of service, and you're not an imposter. So now I'm going to leave that with you, because I know that your nervous system is recalibrating right now. And it's probably saying, what the fuck? Is she crazy? What's going on? That's good. I've distorted and interrupted your pattern. So if you're leaking 100K right now, or 150K, or 25K, work it out, do the maths. If you're charging 5K and you should be charging 6 or 7, if you're charging 10 and you should be charging 15, work it out, do the maths and see what you're leaving on the table. And if you're working 50-hour week and still not where you want to be, again, do the maths. And I give you fair warning because this work does require you to step into your future self. Not about shifting identity or betraying who you are. It requires you shifting into your future self. So if you're still attached to being likable or relatable, if you're still attached to being, I can't possibly charge that, I have imposter syndrome. If you're still attached to being, I can't be visible, then the question is, are you really ready to step into the version of who you are and charge and become who you really are? It's not perfect. It's not flawless. There's no flawlessness in this. And if you see on Instagram right now, everyone's going back to being raw because AI has polished everyone out to the truth of who they are. So if you're ready, then I invite you to either book a call, do a test run of the wealth immersion, but continue disrupting and disorienting your nervous system. Continue expanding and stretching that bubble, because that is when you really start to break through and sustain that momentum. So I'll leave you with this and I'll ask you this question. How much is it costing you to stay where you are right now? And can you afford to stay there for the next 12 months? I'd love to thank you for taking the time and spending the time with me. I really appreciate it. I love you being here. And if you have any questions, if you want to dive deeper, if you just want to have a chat, I'm here. Because when you move, you don't just move, everyone else moves. And we know that now. And thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one.